Welcome to this session of the CASSINI Ireland Hackathon, live from the National Space Centre at Elfordstown Earth Station in Cork. Brought to you in partnership with Munster Technological University and Blackrock Castle Observatory, and proudly sponsored by Black Knight. CASSINI is the European Commission's new programme to support space-based entrepreneurs. Our theme is Digitising Green Spaces, using satellite data and signals to discover your city, stay fit and healthy, and protect our rural areas. Join the CASSINI Hackathon to solve global challenges and design the future of green spaces.
Okay, great. Rory, you're up.
Wonderful. Well, thanks very much for inviting me along for our CASSINI friends and Sabrina. It's a delight to be involved in this. The reason we've got involved in the CASSINI Hackathon is we want to encourage people and flush out people for our space centre that are interested in space, that want to start businesses in space and that want to get involved in this competition. As I mentioned in some of the other ones, there's a $2,500 prize for the winner. And my son Jack was asking, could he enter? And I said, absolutely not. You don't qualify. You would be a conflicting party. But everybody else out there, get your ideas in. No matter how good or bad, it doesn't matter. It gets you into a conversation with us and with the space industry. A large part of this is that we're trying to let people know and encourage people from all backgrounds, all walks of life to get involved in space. And we're also showing them that there is so many different opportunities in space. Like, I keep telling people that no matter how big a company is or how small a company is, it needs accountants, salespeople, it needs lawyers, it needs all the different functions of a company. It doesn't just need astrophysicists. We need those too, but they're a small percentage of the staffing. So if you're interested in space, but you're not into physics, you're into arts, then the sales side of things might be good for you. And if you're into numbers, then finance and like if you look at Musk, who's one of the top performers out there, his background isn't in physics. He was a software guy, and he came in from that side. So it is interesting when you look at the different skills, and Bruce will explain a little bit more about this in a minute. But it's a broad spectrum. And in fact, I think, Bruce, you're not a physicist either, are you?
No, I'm a lowly engineer.
Yep. And yet the engineers are the people that build the stuff. So if you want something to go in space, a physicist can't build it. The engineer builds it, and he gets it to space, and then the physicist has a look.
Yep. I came out of logistics, which is a completely different field to building rockets.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do with this. So thank you very much. We want to get as many entries in as we can. As I mentioned already, $2,500 cash into your law. Did I mention $2,500?
You did. Sorry, how much was that?
You could buy a Volkswagen Beetle, kind of a second-hand Beetle, perhaps for $2,500. What else could you buy for $2,500, Sabrina? Bitcoin. You could buy Bitcoin.
You could buy a really nice Fendi handbag.
You could.
Just a thought.
Oh, the idea with cryptocurrency on the bottom.
No, we're not doing this. Go away with your cryptocurrency. That's it. He's done now. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. He's absolutely convinced that we should start a cryptocurrency. We're not starting one. Okay.
This is why engineers are important, because they keep the sales and the marketing people in the room.
In their place.
Yes.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is Bruce Hanna. He is our Chief Technical Officer, and he's going to start us off by addressing some specifics from the big themes that were raised in the general hour-and-a-half long intro session. So I come from a non-technical background, and I think that a number of you may also come from a non-technical background, and even people who are from a technical background need to answer the question, how can we use like Earth observation data how does it apply to this challenge of green spaces? So Bruce is handily here with some actual real world examples of viable businesses ideas that are up and running using Earth observation data exactly of the same kind as we have available to all of the hackathon participants. So Bruce, take it away.
Okay, I'm getting some feedback there. Somebody's volume is up. But I will keep it. I understand what you're saying there, Sabrina. I will, if I go down the nerdy route, let me know, and I'll drag it back again. Anyway,
will I stay on for that as well? Will I just to help with that point?
you may, yes.
Okay.
So digitizing green spaces. Okay, Earth observation data. Generally, with EO, you are trying to use that information to automate some part of a process which is expensive and manual. Satellites go around the planet, the EO satellites go round and round and round. They never stop and just take image after image after image. No amount of human interaction can do that. So that's what EO can at the very base level can do. So talking about 3 specific examples. The first one is a Cork company called Treemetrics, and they had identified a need, and that need was, how do you work out how much timber's in a forest? You're talking millions of hectares of trees. How much timber is actually there? So they had a method that on the ground they used lasers to scan a small area of the forest and establish how much timber was actually in that small area. How do you extrapolate that over a distance? Well, they took small samples here, there, across the way, and realized there was variation in the amount of standing timber in a particular area. So they couldn't actually extrapolate across that wider area. And that's where Earth observation came in, because then what they were able to do was take observation data sets and say, okay, here's a part of the forest. We've done some manual analysis of this, but we can't count every tree in the forest. So what we're going to do is we're going to match this area that we've analyzed on the ground with what it looks like from space. And this other area over here, a few miles away that we sampled, well, what does that look like from space? Because we saw variation. And what does this area look like? Oh, that looks like that. So very quickly, they were able to use these EO data sets to basically with their ground truth data, to say, well, lots of timber looks like this, not so much timber looks like that, a little bit less timber looks like this. So now they establish a pattern and then run those algorithms over the whole forest and very quickly come up with a very good estimation of how much timber was actually in the forest. This is important if you're a forest owner, how much revenue you're actually going to generate when you cut your timber down. They're also able to work out how tall the trees are, but that's a whole separate issue. So they were answering the question. The question was how much timber's in the forest. The why is that important? Well, how much is the forest worth? So that's Treemetrics and their application of EO data. Another one is perhaps more relevant in terms of digitizing green spaces because it applies to the urban environment, is the concept of pocket parks. And these would be small areas in large, high density or medium density population areas, which could be given over to urban relaxation spaces where you might have, say, a quarter of an acre or 0.1 of a hectare that could be turned into a green space or a play area or an area for neighborhood socialization, which is often missing. Now, these are often established in spare lots that are no use for building or change of use. They could be donated by councils. But when you're talking about a citywide application, how do you actually go about identifying these spaces? Do you drive around? Do you get on your bicycle and just drive the streets and say, oh, there's one, mark it on the map. There's one, mark it on the map. What do you do when you want to go to the next city? Do you do the same thing? Well, no. What you do is you identify one in your locale and say, right, what are the characteristics of this or this other space? You know, it was a car parking lot. or it was a building that was demolished and nothing's happened for years. So you establish the characteristics of that, you build your algorithm, and then you run that algorithm over the whole city, and then say, right, what's it told us? And you go to, oh, there's a target here, there's a target there. So you go there, you take a look, and you say, right, now I know my algorithm works. Who's going to be interested in this? Well, urban planners, or city councils, or even building companies who want to get permission for their projects.
But Bruce, there's also a business model for architecture and urban activity companies who are in the business of providing bespoke design for these spaces as well, right?
This is true, and they have basically they're going along and say, look, we've identified these spaces here. We want to turn this into a whatever space for the neighborhood. So it is fulfilling a social aspect, but there is a business in there because it gets legislative bodies out of problems, and it has them fulfilling their mandate. And there are many different applications of that type of thing, because you could be talking about in these times of say pollinators being under stress. It could be identifying spaces for pollinators. It could be take industrial estates. Industrial estates, a lot of the grounds, a lot of the estate is that's not necessarily factory or warehouse, is landscaped to avoid it looking so brutal. What could you do with those spaces if you knew where they existed? And you're looking for a certain area, as in a certain square meters. Sorry, Sabrina. So that's two. The third one is slightly different, and this is a Scottish company called Hooley. And what they are doing is they started with the question, well, we have sat nav for cars, but what's there for cyclists? And they are what they've come up with is an application that takes GNSS and it takes GIS mapping data, but also Earth observation data sets to build cycling routes, not necessarily road cycling routes, it could be off-road cycling routes for mountain bikers. And they started with the question of, what they've done is they've automated the manual process of poring over a map and saying, well, if I ride to here, then I go off-road and I go up to here, and then, oh, I wonder, now that says it's quite steep. What kind of terrain is that? So they have taken these Earth observation data sets to say, well, if you're going off-road now, this area is boggy, this area is dry land, this area is actually very rough terrain, so maybe you don't want to go through here. They've come up with basically, you put in, as a user, you put in your parameters. You want to go 5, 10, 30 kilometers. You want to go a circular route. You don't want to go. You want to go off-road as much as possible. You don't want to have wet, boggy terrain. You want to go to forest trails, all of that, and you put that into your tick, 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 check your boxes, and their fancy algorithms then come out with this route as a cyclist. So as a mountain biker, it doesn't matter where you pitch up. You could pitch up hundreds of miles from home and say, I've got my bike in the back of the car. I want to go for a ride. Where am I going to go? Bum, bum, bum. There's your route. Off you go. So you have to know nothing about the area that you're going to. So they've managed to make a business out of applying those EO data sets as well, using the algorithms to extract the key parameters that cyclists would be interested in.
That's really interesting, because you mentioned that this is a technology that comes in broad consumer use from cars and is being applied to bicycles, but I also know that it's being applied to motocross, so that you can look at the motocross circuit, assess the terrain, and fine-tune your bike for both the terrain and the environmental conditions. So like if it's raining and there are inclines or whatever, I don't know anything about tuning bicycles, but I just think it's really interesting that we can use this data. And I mean, it's it's locomotion, whether it's locomotion in a car that interests us, or it's locomotion because we're huge bicycle enthusiasts, or because we are mad motocross heads or whatever, that we can take this technology and apply it across all different kinds of business sectors. I think that's really interesting.
It's also not static, it's dynamic, because you could say, well, I want to go this way. And then you go back a month later and say, oh, that was a really good route that I rode that day. However, it's been pouring and the area is flooded. So now you go back to it and say, you're not going through there anymore because the EO data set has indicated that the area is flooded.
Yeah, I think it's cool. And I love that we can apply this to anything. And I was just thinking, maybe somebody here would like to apply this to horse racing. That would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Okay. So thank you very, very much, Bruce, for giving us that kind of market overview. That's really appreciated. Thanks for making time to come out and give us a hand today. And to wrap up, I know, and nobody is not excited about getting to leave early. It doesn't matter what the activity is. So I am going to take us, oh, wait, no, I'm not doing that. I am planning to share a really brief presentation about, here we go, about the important points that everybody here needs to know if they are planning to take part in this hackathon. So obviously we are all here for digitizing green spaces. And I'm Sabrina Dent. I'm the head of marketing and business development at the National Space Center. You've previously met our CEO, Rory, who just took off. You've met Bruce Hanna, our CTO. You may know us from the big dish. You can see that there is a giant dish there. It's 32 meters across. Our offices are in the circular building underneath it. And yes, that is a stormtrooper. It is a very long story, but it's a thing. So today I'm going to go over 4 key things with you: eligibility rules, how to submit, the submission process, and how judging and prizes work. I know that some of you had questions about all 4 of these topics, so I'm going to be as brief as possible. You need to be 18 years old. You need to be a resident of an EU member state, Norway, Iceland, or Switzerland. And people are always like, why also Norway, Ireland, or Switzerland? And like Switzerland, for example, contributes to the ESA budget, so they are allowed to budget from ESA projects and initiatives like Cassini. The question of how many people need to be on a team: you need 3 to 8 people. You can join as a team together. You can say, we've got a team of 3, we've got a team of 8, and we are ready to rock. Or you can come up and say, hey, I have this skill set and I would be really interested in doing this, but I don't have anybody to do it with, and we will hook you up with a team. Bruce, by the way, you're in charge of the chat if there are questions, because I can't see anything. All right, so the most important thing that differentiates this hackathon from previous hackathons that have been run on the European level in this sector, the space sector, is that in this hackathon, the organizers are specifically designating that there has to be at least one person with a technical profile and one with a business profile. So your stuff has to work, and your stuff has to have some kind of market assessment and business plan behind it. That's the minimum, and that will take up 2 people on your team. What I think it's important to emphasize is that a winning team is not a person with a technical background and a person with a business background. You're going to need to round out your skill set, and that may be somebody in marketing, it may be somebody in design, it may be somebody with an environmental background, it might be somebody who's doing sustainability at university. And in terms of being eligible, I want to stress that when they say that they want somebody with a technical profile, it does not mean that you need to have worked for Facebook or Microsoft for 3 years. What it means is that you have at least a basic technical proficiency. Okay, we are trying to bring as many people into this hackathon as possible. You do need an idea. Luckily, you have 3 weeks to come up with one, and we have a lot of different opportunities to come up with ideas and different events that will be taking place. And you do need, as part of your idea, to have the intention to use EU space data and signals. What I will say is that if you at the moment are completely freaked out by this and you don't really know what that means, that is absolutely okay. There are really good resources for you. If you go to the hackathon homepage at hackathons.cassini.eu, which is the place where you registered, and you scroll down to the bottom of the page that nobody ever looks at, there is a whole section on Earth observation and satellite navigation, and there's an introductory video on all 3 kinds of data sets that are available to you. That is Copernicus data, Galileo data, and ENOS data. So those are the best introductions to the kinds of data that you can use in your project. And yes, you can feel free to mix that up with other kinds of data from other systems. As we heard in the keynote, like Google Earth would be an example of that. And once you have an overview and you go to the tools section of the Hackathon Cassini website, there is a tools section, and there is a series of training videos on using the DS platform, and we can talk more about what the DS platform is over the course of this week, because there are 3 technical training sessions that cover the DS platform, but they're really good backgrounders here, and you should, if you are going to be the technical touch point for your team, you definitely want to have an idea of how to manipulate this data, so I would encourage you to look at those. Okay, and the rules are all the code needs to be created by you, and you cannot start hacking until Friday night on the 18th of June. So those are the limitations for when you can begin. And in terms of programming languages, you can use any programming language that you want. Use Python. And there are publicly available or openly licensed. You can use any API, development kit, framework, or software library that you want. So that's really useful. And there's nothing that says that you can't go browse, GitHub now. You just cannot start writing your own code. The last super interesting thing that's quite picky is the submission process, and we will be doing a special session on the submission process just before the hackathon kicks off on the 18th. But the key thing to know is that this entire hackathon is timed for Central Europe, and as we are behind that, we do need to be conscious of the start and end times. So we end at the bizarre time of 2:30 in the afternoon on Sunday the 20th. Why? I don't know. But that's actually 1:30 Ireland time, and that's really important that you remember that. I'm literally going to send you an email that morning that says, don't forget, it's 1:30. So that's the deadline for that. And there is a process that the overall organizers are asking you to engage in. You're going to need to do a 2-minute recorded video pitch. We are going to have a session on pitching, so don't freak out about that. And then you need to do a write-up of your submission on an app called Junction, where you will have a username and password already. And that they're going to ask for things like, give us a description of the product, give us a description of the market for this product, tell us what code you used, or tell us what programming languages you used, and tell us how this uses Earth observation data or signals. And then, so that's that. There are 3 separate parts. You do your 2-minute recorded video pitch, you do your Junction submission, and then the real thing is you need to do a live 5-minute pitch to the judges for Ireland. Okay. And again, I just want to emphasize we are going to have an entire session on pitching, and there are going to be some take-home exercises for you to use to think about in advance of having to submit your hackathon project. And as we talked, oh sorry, I just went through this. this is what you're going to need to submit injunction. And I will distribute this presentation as a PDF, and so you will have all of this, and I will also send you a link to the rules that lay out this stuff. The last thing is the judging and the prizes, which is the fun part. You are judged on 4 criteria or 3 criteria, I don't know, some number of criteria. The first thing is the relevance of the hackathon, the relevance of your product or solution to the hackathon theme and the individual challenges. The second one is how innovative your solution is, and what value does it deliver for future users and customers. The quality of your team, so the technical expertise and, as discussed, your business expertise. But as we said, a business person and a technical person is not a winning team. You need to really flesh out that team, and that is one of the criteria you're going to be judged on. Okay. You do get to win money. We are all big fans of money. So one of you gets to take home 2,500 euros for your team. A second one of you can take home 1,500 euros for your team. And the third one of you can take home 500 euros for your team. This is all very kindly sponsored by Black Knight. And they are also, the first, second, and third team gets a .earth domain to, productize your hackathon submission, and some hosting to back that up for the first year. And you can renew the domain and the hosting for a second year if you want. And so the things that I really want you to understand about this hackathon is that it's a very brief amount of time, even without sleep. They are giving us about 18 hours. And what you really need to do in that 18 hours is make sure that you deliver a functional proof of concept. So you can say, we have this really big idea about, let's take motocross or Bruce's example of bicycle, off-road bicycle paths. So we have this really big idea, and here's a look at the market, and here's how we think people are going to use this, and we'd like it to be an app, and we're going to use Stripe for financial transactions, and this is what we're going to develop it in. But for the 18 hours just for this hackathon, what you need to do is deliver just a proof of concept, a minimum viable, not even product. You need to show that you can use Earth observation data to, interrogate a map, right, Bruce? Like, we're looking for a very small proofs of concept here, right? You're muted. Okay. And the second thing that I want to emphasize is that there is a role for everyone. So when you're pitching in your 5-minute pitch, you're going to say, like, here's our working code. It's this very small example, but here's the app that we're imagining in the future. We would love people to be able to interact with this data in this way or whatever. And you're going to need a designer for that, or a marketer with a broad skill set, somebody who can at least mock something decent looking up in Canva or whatever. The third point that I want to make is that it's good to use the tools and the tutorials that are available to you, and go to this week there are 3 technical training sessions, and I would encourage you to attend those technical training sessions. But also remember that nobody's grading your code. The judges, you have the option of doing a GitHub, but the judges are not going to go and interrogate that code in the hour and a half or 2 hours that we have in the judging process. So, show us a working prototype in a very small scale. Use your team to really flesh that out and make us see the big picture and make us see your vision of where this is going, and don't freak out about it. And that's basically, oh, cool, I can't spell my own name. Awesome. And that's it. That's all I have. So we will be taking questions in the Q&A.
Where did the questions go? Yeah, so, okay. There are a few questions that have come in.
Right.
So the first one is, am I eligible even though I'm still at college?
Yes.
So the answer is as long as you're over 18.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
The next one is, somebody's asking, it's cool to share the slides.
I will mail them out. Can people in the audience let me know, did you get the mailing today? Did you get an email from the central team about this event in the Ireland, this info session? Because I have no way of knowing if these emails are actually working. I've only sent one, but I am going to send it out again. And also I can make them available on our central hackathon page. Thank you very much, Laura. That's great. Okay.
But the session's being recorded anyway, so...
True, yes.
the
So
slides
we'll
will
make
all
the
be there.
YouTube and the PDF available for download on the hackathon page.
And then, please, somebody's asking, please elaborate on how I can meet other potential team members. Very good question.
Very good question. So there are two ways to do this. The central organizers are big on Discord, so we do have a Ireland Discord, and there are channels on it, and one of them is a channel where you can introduce yourself to other people, and hopefully you can form teams through just chatting on Discord and getting to know each other. If that's not your bag, don't worry about it. We are going to have a meet and greet event, and we are also going to do a games night for Ireland where people will get a chance to know each other. You know, we're not going to be playing Among Us, but we might be playing something similar to Among Us. So, you know, if you've developed a real pandemic skill set at Among Us, it definitely wasn't me. And we'll give you the chance to get to know other people through both activities and online interactions.
Cool. And then, question from H, do we need to present the business model?
Somebody needs to present the business model, but as so you're going to be given 5 minutes to pitch to the judging panel, and I mean, I am not sure what our presenter, our facilitator, is going to be suggesting for that, but I would think that one slide out of those 5 would be on. I would do 5 slides in 5 minutes maybe, or 10 slides in 5 minutes, and I would just devote 1 or 2 of those to the business model. It actually shouldn't be hard to say, this is the size of the market, these are the chief competitors, this is our product differentiation, and this is what we estimate the value to be. Those are the 4 key points the judges want to look at.
Yep.
Oh, good question.
Yes. Must projects be location specific, in this case, Ireland?
Okay, so there's like always a booty aching part of every development project in the world, and this is the derriere kicker here. The data set that we are going to be given to work with for this hackathon is, drumroll please, Portuguese! And they chose a Portuguese data set because this year the presidency of the European Union is a Portuguese presidency. Another year it may be a Irish data set. But like I said, we are talking about a proof of concept on a really small level. So it doesn't actually matter in our motocross example whether you're showing or Bruce's off-road biking thing. It doesn't matter so much if we're looking at a forest in Portugal or outside Porto, or a forest outside Tipperary. And the point is that you can build a viable product around this kind of data, and then if you win, we have a whole process ahead of you to help you take that data and actually map it to your specific market. But the market that you're looking at should be the Irish market. So give me the business case for Ireland and give me the proof of concept on a code basis using the EO data for Portugal that you'll be given on the DS.
And also, if I, at risk of speaking, sorry, I'm getting some feedback here. I hate hearing myself talk. Does the market need to be exclusively Irish? I mean, I think if somebody comes up with an international market, surely that's a good thing.
go fix a problem in Japan. Go fix a problem that we have everywhere. I mean, one of the things
The
that I was
problems are very
thinking,
similar across the world, yeah.
yeah, and one of the things that I was thinking about when you were talking about pocket parks, which is my favorite, because I mean, who doesn't want a park in their pocket? Like, it's adorable, right? I grew up in Manhattan, and when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, we have these big boulevards with traffic on both sides and a strip down the middle that has a park bench at the crosswalk, and then between the crosswalks, it would be, when I was growing up, it was all trees. And then that was taken out at some point in the 80s. I don't know why, probably to make room for capitalists. And and then, but now there's a huge initiative in neighborhoods all up and down Manhattan to use these boulevard strips in Manhattan to create little tiny micro parks in residential neighborhoods. And it can be just a place where you're fostering bees or whatever. I mean, a whole business about places to do urban beehives would be amazing. That would be so cool. I don't know how we got here. Okay, I'm done talking now.
Business model.
Right, yeah. Okay. Great, cool. Does anybody have any other questions? Or is there anything that was asked previously that you'd like us to go into more depth about? Okay. I would like to add that we will be bribing you to take part in this hackathon. There is swag. Part of a normal fun conference event that nobody has had for the past 18 months is you go and you get a bag and you visit everybody and everybody gives you free stuff, and you go home and you're like, what is this? Where did it come from? What do I do with it? Or you get like little clicky things, or you get pens or whatever. And we want you to have some of that experience. We're going to be sending you care packages, hack packs at home if you are taking part in the hackathon, and we're gonna, try to make this as fun for you guys as we can in the middle of a pandemic. And that's pretty much all I have. Is there anything that anybody would like to ask before we wrap up? Okay.
I think everybody's done.
Okay.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Can you post the link to the Discord server in the chat?
Oh.
I mean, I'm like 49 years old, so probably not. But if you give me a few minutes to go away and think about it, yeah, I will include it in the email.
Cyril's made the point you get it when you register. I was thinking that. Yeah, you do.
The magic of the internet. It's amazing.
The knowledge is within the group already.
There you go. So that's the kind of team cooperation I like to see.
Yeah.
All right. So, but I will send out everything that I can think of that at this early junction will be of use to you guys, okay? All right. Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody who helped answer other people's questions. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing you guys take part in this hackathon. Please don't be intimidated. We really want you to do this, and we really want to support you. Bring your friends.
and just one thought I will leave you with. When it comes to Earth observation, a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to break through that problem that's in front of them, go through the wall. Often the solution to that problem is above their heads. So look up and look down over the wall.
He's also our resident philosopher. All right. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye.